Hi, my name is Tom Kastele, and I'm back here for another Empower Online session, this one regarding building your first low-code app. So, let's take a look at what we'll see today. First off, we'll take a look at what low-code apps are. I'll explain to you what the difference is between that and dashboards. Versioning is going to be one thing that is different, so I'm going to explain that, how that works, how many versions you can have, how drafting works. Then we can create our first app. We'll learn how to navigate edit mode. We can have events and actions in apps. That's also something different compared to dashboards. And of course, we'll have many exercises to teach you the ropes on all of these things and eventually build you your first low-code app and maybe even earn some DevOps points. So what are low-code apps? Low-code apps are custom applications that interact with DataMiner or an external source. A low-code app is one application, and we provide a framework with which you can build low-code apps. So you'll see you can combine multiple pages, make submenus, custom actions, open panels, but in much of the same way as we would create a dashboard. So it's really easy to use, and you'll have that full app experience. So what are the differences between low-code apps and dashboards? First off, the similarities. Just like dashboards and low-code apps, you can use any data source, be it from DataMiner or an external one, through GQI, through actual data from your DataMiner system. You'll have that catalog of visual components, the same one as you get in dashboards, and even some more because we have an extra focus here in low-code apps, namely that focus on interaction. And the focus on interaction means we want to be able to click certain things. We want to be able to click buttons, open panels, things like that. And for that, we'll have a couple, not many more visual components. We have access to all of the actions and events, so we'll see how that works as well. We have no live sharing in low-code apps. That is currently something that is only supported in dashboards. And of course, for a dashboard, it makes sense to export that to a PDF and email it or something like that. Given that low-code apps focus on interaction, that's not really an aim there, so that does not exist. Finally, we have versioning in low-code apps, which we do not have in dashboards. If you edit the dashboard, it immediately applies for everyone. In low-code apps, we'll see that you can make drafts, you can publish those, and you can even go back a couple of versions to roll back your changes. So let's take a quick look at a couple of low-code apps, just some examples to get you inspired to make your own after this session. A first example is this jobs overview. So here we can schedule certain jobs, schedule in resources, book them. We'll have a timeline overview in one of the pages. You'll be able to search for certain jobs. Another example is the Starlink app. Starlink, of course, the terminal system with which you can get internet anywhere, the satellite internet. So here we can get a look at certain terminals. You'll see the map here. And you can actually click on terminals to open a panel, see the details on that terminal, and things like that. So really interactive, leveraging those panels. More simple, but equally useful, is the People and Organizations app, for instance. Here you can manage your organization, add people to it, see how the teams are distributed, get some statistics, and so on. Right, so let's take a look at the first change we will have compared to dashboards, which is versioning. So if you have a low-code app, you'll see that at the top right, you get 3 dots next to your user icon. And in those 3 dots, you'll find the versions. If you have multiple versions already, you'll see you have some history here, published versions in the past, but you'll also have, for instance, a draft, which is nicely shown in yellow, and you'll have your active version, which is the one highlighted here. So you can actually click those versions and easily revert to a previous version on the app to work on that one if you made a mistake. So let's take an immediate look at how to create an app, and then we'll also be able to take a look at that versioning. So first thing we'll do before we get to this page is go to our actual agent. I am currently on DataMiner.services because I'm using a DAS system. I will click home here, or you can just directly navigate in your browser to your agent address. Takes me here. You'll see that in the slides, the icon here for the app is a little plus icon next to other apps. Note that is different from what we will see because there is already an app here. So if you already have an app, this is what you will see, and the plus icon is what you need to click to create a new one. If you have no apps yet, you'll just get this create a new app button. We can click that, and the first thing we then want to do is enter a name. It already gets highlighted, and we will enter agent info as our name. We'll be building a low-code app that displays information on our DataMiner agent. So not super interactive, but we'll do the interactivity components. So when you do want to make a really control-oriented app, you'll know what to do. Next, we click this little blinking icon here, which allows us to change the app style. As it says here, you can change the theme and the color. The color gets generated randomly. In my case now, I did not get so lucky and I got a brown color. Let's change that to a nice orange. Something like this, perhaps. Some more yellow. There. I'm happy with this orange, and I can also change the icon. You can upload a custom icon through this button, but you can also search the icon library that we have. So if I look for help, for instance, I can find a nice icon that will allow me to easily identify this app as an app with which I can check the health of our server. I'm done, and I click the icon again, and I arrive in the app. And now the next thing that is highlighted is the create page, but we'll get to that in the next step. First, I will publish the app. On the top right here, you can see we have some buttons. We have the preview draft button with the little eye. So with that, you can actually take a look at your app. Currently, we are in edit mode. This exit edit mode and looks at the draft version of the app. No one else will be able to see this draft, unless they are also editing the draft, of course. But when you look at the published version, it will not be this one. However, when I'm happy with my results, I can click Publish App, and I can change the name or change some description things, and then click Publish. Now, of course, I have an empty app, and I can go into my draft again by clicking the pencil icon. And also, if I click here on the 3 dots, I can discard my draft, I can duplicate my app, view the published app. And in the published app, if I click versions, I can see I actually have a version history now. So I have my initial published version from earlier, and I also entered a new draft version already. So this is V2, which is the draft version. And I can also take a look at that. So I can just click these versions and go into edit, and it gives me that app version. All right, so that's our first step done. We have our app. So let's add some pages. We can add a page on several things, but we'll see that in the exercise. So in the left-hand panel, you'll find the Create Page button. if your panel is collapsed, you can click this icon here. We'll change the page name and icon, and then we can start adding components just like you would in dashboards, and finally publish your app or preview your app like we did earlier. So this is our exercise. Feel free to pause here, go through the exercise, and then continue the video. I will show you in a second how it's done if you're not following along. So pause here and then we can keep going. Right, so if you have your new app created, I will add 2 pages, the home and the task manager. So the first page I enter is home. I can give my page an icon. If I just enter home, you get a nice little house icon. And I will create another page called Task Manager. Also choose an icon for it. You can also reorder your pages with the arrow icons here. You can hide them from your sidebar. Sometimes you want to open a page through the click of a button, but you don't actually want to keep the page shown in the published version. So you can actually hide it. You can duplicate a page or delete it, of course. All right, happy with my result. I publish. And I can see in my version history, I now have a previous published version and an active published version, and my 2 pages. Finally, in my exercise, I will also add a task manager table of my DataMiner agent element. So again, I go into edit mode and start my 3rd version. I click on this page. And this is very similar to dashboards. You have your visualizations here on the left. And then you have your data here on the right. So I will make a parameter table. Note here the difference. This is a normal table because it doesn't have colored cells in it. This parameter table does. Reason for the difference in the icon is that the parameter table can show the alarm state of your different parameters that you're showing in your table. So if you have alarming on those, you'll see them in here. I add the task manager table. I click on the table on the little icon for the data. And it highlights on the right that I can actually only add parameters. Now, pay close attention. This may not be super straightforward, given that we want to add a specific table. We don't want to add a page. We don't want to add a specific row or column from that table. We want to add the full table. So if you have multiple elements, make sure to select your Microsoft Platform element here. And then I will look for Task Manager. And this is where you need to pay attention. This little icon says this is a page. That is not what I want to add. I will also not be able to, as you can see. I want to open this up and find my Task Manager table. If I drag this one on top of it, we got our table. You can see what the primary key is. You can actually go to histograms on the monitoring app. You can open trend graphs. So really, this is a very similar table to what you will get in your native DataMiner Cube app. Once that's done, I will click Publish again. And I have my 3rd version. If I change the page here, you can see my Task Manager table. Right, if you need to catch up, pause here, and then we'll get on to the next part, which is how to navigate the edit mode, particularly the new things compared to dashboards. So navigating edit mode, we have our pages, we've seen that, but we also have panels that we can add. So when we're on a page, you'll find a section called panels, and we can actually add panels through there, change their names, and again, populate those panels in the same way we populate a page or a dashboard. Other parts we have in our page are the icon, we already saw that, but also a header bar that we can enable. So let's take a look at that. If I go back to my app into edit mode, first off I can open the panels here and add one by clicking this little button. But I can also enable the header bar here with this toggle button. And then I can start creating buttons either here on the top left or on the top right. So let's say I create a button here and I call it details. I get my button here in the list and I can change the icon. I clicked back by accident. There. So back to my details. Yes. Now I have a little button. This button, of course, will not do anything. We'll see in the exercise what we will do with it. When we have our button, we can configure our button action. We'll do that in a second. So this is our exercise. We will create a new panel. We will call it details. On the panel, we will just add a line chart visual. We will filter. We will add the VM size parameter of the task manager table to that line chart. And then we will also add a filter. And that filter will be the selected row of our task manager table on the main page. So you'll see in a second what I mean. And then you can pause to catch up. So first off, I will add a panel. So I open up the panel section. I can close the header bar for now. And I click the plus here. I give my panel a name, just details. And I add a line chart component. I will resize it and then click the data icon, go to parameters, select my element. And this time around, I'm looking for the VM size. I will open up the task manager page. I will open up the task manager table. And in there, I can find the VM size. Don't open it up any further, because that then will also show all of the rows. But because we will use the selection from the other page, we can actually just drop the VM size on here. Now I can not see anything. Why? Because I have not selected a row yet, and I have not added it as a filter here. So what do we need for that? We actually need a component data part. And I can go and open up this task manager parameter table. So on the page task manager, I have a parameter table with selected rows. And from that, I want the indices. So the index of the row I have selected. I drop that. You can see now the icon is actually a filter icon. Drop that on top. And I still cannot see anything. Of course not, because I have not selected a row in my page. So let's go here to this page, or actually go back first. Make sure we are on the page, and then I will select a row of which the VM size is probably trended. So one of the DataMiner extension module processes. And now I go back to my details panel in edit mode, and you can see I actually have a trend graph now. Great, so that's this exercise done. We cannot open the details panel yet, but we'll see that in the next section on events and actions. Feel free to pause here to catch up. If you need to, you can go back through the slides or through the video to look at the steps that we had, the different buttons to click to get to where we are. Next up, events and actions. So very closely tied together. First, what are events? Events are things that happen and that can then trigger an action. It does not have an active state, and There are several examples we have. You can click a button. You can click a button in the header bar, for instance. That can trigger an action. That is an event. When a panel opens, when a panel closes, when an automation script finishes, that also triggers an event. And all of those things can be linked to actions. So where can we find events? So a couple of locations. First off, on the pages and panels, when we open something, we get an event. And you can see that here. Here we get an on-open and on-close event, and you can configure actions on there. We also have several component events. For instance, on a button in the settings panel, the settings tab, you will find a way to configure an action to click on a button. When an automation script finishes, we get the onFinish event. And again, in the settings, we can configure what happens. For a table, same thing. When we double-click a row, we can execute something. The timeline is another example. Here we have multiple different events. We can do one on the range being selected, but also on resizing one of the timeline items. Often we will then execute a script that actually changes the properties of our timeline item. And we also have it in the template editor. The template editor, you might not be familiar with it yet, but the template editor is a visual editor for tables, timelines, and grids, for instance, where we can actually configure what our item looks like in that component. So in a grid or in a table, we list several items. We can define what that item looks like through the table editor. In that table editor, we can add any number of components, and each of those components can have an on-click event that then triggers an action. So if you're curious about those, go to our documentation, take a look at the table template editor for your table, for your grid, whatever your use case. And that brings us to the actual action itself. So we have many different actions to choose from. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. You can launch a script when you click on a button, when you double-click a row in a table. You can navigate to a different URL, simple copy to clipboard, opening pages, panels, closing them. And then the most extended one is executing component actions. With component actions, you can actually do things like set viewports on a timeline. If you click a button, last 24 hours, you can zoom on the timeline to the last 24 hours. You can refresh tables with it. Let's say you just executed something or you just saved something. You want to fetch the data from the table. And there you can actually do that. So in a second, we'll see how to bring both together. But first, I want to show you what the actions pop-up looks like. So let's just say I want to do an action when I open this page. I click Configure Actions, and what I want to show here in particular is that whatever we do, be it navigating to a URL or opening another page, for instance, you can actually chain actions together as well. So you have two options there. We can click here at the bottom on Add Action, and that adds an action that will be executed at the same exact time as the other one. So when we open the page home, we might want to also copy something to the clipboard. However, we can also say, when we open the page home, at that moment, and I click the plus here, or you can, I remove it. Hold up. So when we open the home page, you can also say upon completion, I want to add it. So if it's collapsed, you can just add the plus, click the plus. If it's expanded, click upon completion. And this one chains actions one after the other. So when the page is opened, then we can say, okay, let's execute a component action. So you also have notifications here, monitoring card, component action, and maybe I want to set the viewport of my line chart. Let's say I opened my details panel. I want to set it to a certain time range. Again, you can link this to other data and so on. Right? So you can actually, and you can combine both as well. If I do add action, I can both do 2 actions in parallel, but also when the first action completes, I do another action. Right? So let me just remove all of these. And then we can have both things together. We have an event that triggers an action. And that's exactly what we will do in the next exercise. In this one, you can follow the steps by the number. We will enable the header bar if you have not done that yet. We will add a button called Details. And then we will click that Details button and also do an on-click action. And in that on-click action, we will open the Details panel. Right? So earlier I already added a button, but I removed the header bar again. So I will re-enable the header bar with the toggle button on the Task Manager page. I click the plus here or here and enter a name for my button. Details. Change the icon. Open the events. Configure the action. And then in the action pop-up, I want to open a panel. Which one do I want to open? I only have one panel, so it immediately gets selected. The Details panel. And I can change the width here a bit. And also how the pop-up is shown. I only want this action, that's all that matters to me. And I can click the OK button. Now clicking this here doesn't do anything. That's because I'm still in edit mode and thus I'm editing the button. But I can preview maybe my draft. And now I have a button here called Details. And I have my full flow for my app. I can click any of the rows. I can click Details. And it opens up a pop-up and it shows me the trend graph for this specific row. So some more information that we can show. So really interactable and intuitive to use. So if you need to catch up, pause here, and then you can earn some DevOps points in the next step by uploading a screenshot of this result. Make sure you include the side panel here that shows you have different pages, to include your Task Manager table in the background, the line graph on the foreground, and your Details button that opens that line graph up. If you get that in your screenshot, you can earn DevOps points. And when we've done that, you can continue tweaking your server overview. You might want to create a home page that we have left empty for now. Have some fun with it. Make it nice and intuitive the way you would use it or like to see it in your own system. And other than that, I'm signing out. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and feel empowered. And I'll see you in the next one.